what I want to know, you know what? I have an example in mind. It's something I've seen quite recently. After all, if I ask the audience some examples or some questions, let's kick with the first question. I was in an event recently. It's an event about social impact, and there's one presentation. There basically a lot of people are presenting innovative solutions, right? That their startup or the organization is working on, and one of them that was specific, quite longer than usual, was done by one of the participants that did not clearly identify himself as a member of the board, right? And afterwards, there was a 5 à 7, 5 to 7, kind of more social to discuss and network. And that was sponsored by the same individual and its organization, right? Now, the event itself is a nonprofit. The product, the solution, the innovation that person was presenting was compelling, was very relevant, but he did not disclose his affiliation as a board member of that event. I asked the question to a few people during the event. He's like, what do you think about it? Do you think there's a conflict of interest? There's a lack of transparency? And the answer I got was, well, it's a nonprofit event, so it doesn't matter. There's no money involved. You cannot have lack of transparency if there's no money involved. And now you can see Cheri is getting uncomfortable on that topic because I think it hits at a specific point. What is your perspective on an issue like that? How do you break it down?
There's never no money involved. It's just maybe you're not taking money from the general public because you're not selling a product that's widely used by ordinary people in the case of a corporation. But, as nonprofits, all we are is really stewards of donor money. And so there is money involved. And beyond even moving away from the topic of money, there are people involved. And so I don't know exactly what the pitch was, what the intervention was they were talking about, but in any nonprofit setting, any intervention in some ways, if we're talking about social impact, surely there are people on the other end of it that will be affected by it, whether it's a program you're running or a tool you're introducing. And so we still owe it to whoever engages with us full transparency on who you are, even who's funding potentially a specific thing. And there is, however, Valentin, this tension between radical accountability and radical transparency, which we talk about at Accountability Lab as well. In that instance, I don't see any reason for a board member not to make themselves known as a board member, because surely those are things that for most nonprofit organizations are visible on their website anyway. Um, so in that case, it's a bit weird. However, I do think that there are instances where you don't necessarily disclose everything about where something comes from, because the root of donor money could actually, in some ways, also put a community at risk, right? When there are more politically sensitive issues at play. So I think we have to just be clear about the fact that if there's no risk to a community, I see no reason not to be transparent. But if you're working with more sensitive issues, that's a different story.
So if I get it right, it's almost this idea that by default you're transparent and you don't take any chances and you disclose, unless, for example, you work with vulnerable population where some of could constitute a problem. But if that's the case, you really have to make your case that you act in the best interest of everyone, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's about acting in the best interest of everyone all the time and making your decisions absolutely based on that.